Okay. Thank you. Welcome to tonight's forum for the 5th Congressional District. I want to thank all the candidates who made the long trip to Pullman for tonight's forum. I'm Deb Olson. I will be the moderator for this evening. I would like to thank all of you for coming out on this hot night. This forum will be recorded and available on our website, lwvpullman.org, within 24 hours.
Noon.
Noon. We begin all our public meetings with a reading of our nonpartisan statement, and Cece, our youngest member, is going to do that.
The League acts in support of or in opposition to selected governmental issues which its members have studied. It does not support or oppose candidates, factions, or political parties. League members, as individuals, are urged to work in the political party of their choice. To protect the League's nonpartisanship policy, guidelines regarding the political activities of the Board of Directors are reviewed frequently. The League of Women Voters of Pullman is fully committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion in principle and practice. These concepts are central to our current and future success in engaging all individuals, households, communities, and policymakers in creating a more perfect democracy. We acknowledge and honor the sovereignty of the First Peoples of the Palouse region and their descent, including our neighbors, the Nez Perce, the Palouse tribes, the Confederated Tribes of the Culver Reservation, and Coeur d'Alene Tribe.
Well done.
Before we begin, I'm going to go over our policy. Wait, your people are going, what are these cards for? We do not take questions from the audience. We ask that you write your question on the card and hold it up. It will be collected by various members and brought to this front table. The people here collect the sort the cards so that there's no duplication topic-wise, and also some questions are just not acceptable in the League policy. The two timers are seated in the front there. They will raise a card telling you how much time you have. In order to...
5 seconds.
You've done it before.
We ask that cell phones are silenced and everyone refrain from clapping, booing, and other disruptive behavior. So we may not get to all the questions asked. If your question was not asked, please talk to the candidates after the forum. Okay. We'll begin with opening remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes. And we're going to start at the far end with Andrew.
Hello?
Yeah.
Is it green?
No, it says 17.
I think it.
All right, now we can hear me. Okay, hello everyone, I'm Andrew, better known as Bartleson for Congress. Why don't we just start by addressing the elephant that's not in the room? Fortunately, Mike Baumgartner couldn't be here tonight or send somebody to represent him. That's okay, I got this. I've heard from him before, his representatives. If he was here, he'd want you to know that he loves more than anything the failed policies of the Trump administration. Second most, probably Cougar football. He'd also want to let you know that thanks to him, he got tax cuts passed. Those expire in 2 years later if you're one of his wealthy donors. He'd also want to let you know that he really cares about the farmers. Even though he knows that Whitman County is the #1 wheat producing county in the country, and 90% of that wheat is shipped out of the state over to Asia, Japanese with your hard winter wheat and your soft wheat. And he knows that the Trump administration's unconstitutional tariffs would impact your sales. But you know what? He got you some subsidies for that. Well, he got them for the larger farms, and through the miracle of trickle-down economics, they might get to you at some point. He also want to let you know that, yes, when they passed the budget, they cut a lot of health care costs. But don't worry, he cares about rural health care. Not anybody else's health care, he just wants to know about rural health care. He let you know that his microphone is dead now. Okay, well, he would let you know that it's not so bad because of the health care. Because, you know, if you're making the federal poverty level, you're still going to pay zero. He thinks you should be thankful for that. If you have a family of 4 that earns $32,000, it's only going to go up $50 because in the magical place that Mike Baumgartner inhabits, apparently if you have a family of 4 living on $32,000 a year, you have an extra $50, which is ridiculous. We're not about that here. We're here for the people. We're not here for parties. We're here because we love you and want you to have the best life possible. We're all similar people. We might have different beliefs, different ideologies, but we're all in this together. Thank you. My time is up.
Okay, Carmela?
She needs a microphone.
Well, you're gonna have to share, Mike.
Yeah, we're fine.
No, don't press anything.
I'm not pressing anything, sir. I'm just standing up and getting it in my hand. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Thanks, League of Women Voters of Pullman, for having us. My name's Carmela Conroy, and I am hoping to be your next Congresswoman. We all know what's going on. This $1 billion a day war is crippling our economy. Prices for just about everything are up, and markets that our farmers spent decades building overseas are no longer accessible to us. Rural hospitals are hanging by a thread, and all of this can be fixed. We can help fix it by unseating our freshman Congress member. So, I was born and raised in Spokane by people who were born and raised in Eastern Washington. I went away, I put myself through school, including law school, and I returned to the Spokane County Prosecutor's Office where I prosecuted people who committed sexual abuse, including sexual abuse of children. After that, I joined the State Department, and through 6 presidential administrations in places like Washington, D.C., Afghanistan, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, Pakistan, I negotiated tough trade and national security issues across political, racial, and national boundaries. And I made things work for U.S. interests overseas. What's going on now is something that our Congress member could have helped us with. He promised that he would, and then he didn't. And so he's, instead of holding the powerful accountable, he seems much more interested in cozying up to elites. And I think the most blatant example of that is when there was a bipartisan bill to normalize trade relations with Canada. Dan Newhouse in Central Washington said he voted for that bill because he knew our farmers were suffering. Mike Baumgartner said he knew our farmers were suffering too, and when he didn't know what to do, he asked Mike Johnson, who told him to vote against it. I'm looking forward to talking with you more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Kevin?
Hey there. First off, thank you all so much for coming out tonight. The most valuable thing that any of us have is our time. And so the fact that all of us are willing to be here tonight, that there's candidates willing to stand up in front of you, I think it means that we all know that we care. That we know that there's a host of issues that these candidates can diagnose, that all of us can talk about. But we're all here because we care, because we see threats to our health care, because we see the potential threats to Medicare and Social Security coming down the line, because we know that we cannot continue down the same path with these same broken systems, electing the same politicians. So my name is Kevin Fagan. I'm a Democrat. My background is in climate change and sustainability. I'm a proud Gonzaga grad, but I do support Coug football because we're free agents. We don't have a football team. So love being down in Pullman, and with my background in climate change and sustainability, you know, right now that is not an abstract issue. We are seeing the impacts to both dryland wheat farming, whether it's with drought, whether it's with smoke. We are seeing the impacts to our forests, And we're seeing the impacts to our urban communities as well. All of us know what it's like when there's smoke in the air and we can't breathe. And so I'm running because we need change. Because we need someone who represents working class people. We need someone who represents not the career politicians that have currently been governing our country. We can't continue to expect to elect people who take corporate money, rinse, repeat, and never have to stand in front of their constituents like Michael Baumgartner isn't standing here in front of you tonight. So I really look forward to meeting you all and talking some more. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Richard?
Hello, I'm Richard Freudenberg. Sorry about that. Richard Freudenberg. I actually born in Spokane, and then largely, military family, largely grew up in Moscow, Idaho. Went to WSU as an undergrad, graduated in '99 in the exact same year as Baumgartner did. I will say that I graduated with a 4.0 grade point average. Put that out there. That said, I went to law school at the University of Washington School of Law. This was after 9/11, so I decided it was time for me to serve my country. I decided to join the U.S. Air Force, and I served 8 years on active duty. While on active duty, I was deployed to Iraq. I worked on the prosecution of insurgents, from which the worst kind of people that you would imagine. I worked on detention reviews with senior Iraqi officials to decide whether or not we should release certain individuals we had detained. I worked on international agreements and international relationships in the Azores Islands off the coast of Portugal, called Lodges Field. It's a Portuguese territory, NATO ally. From there, I went to Joint Base San Antonio. At Joint Base San Antonio, I was responsible for leading one of the largest legal office in the Department of Defense. That was responsible for providing services to about 8,000 military personnel, about 80,000 members on the installation, and 130 to 140,000 students annually. Also had about a $700 million budget that year. That said, decided I wanted to see my family. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old at home, so I left the active duty and I joined the Washington International Guard at Fairchild Air Force Base, and I was there ever since. I ended up retiring from the Guard in May of this year, specifically to do this. My priorities is really a matter of taking care of people. I want to take care of veterans. I want to take care of our community. I want to make sure that we address affordability. I want to make sure that we are addressing Social Security. Right now, it's set to expire in the next get about 22.5% cut in the next 6 to 7 years. That's unaffordable for most of our retirees. That's unacceptable. So we need to get in front of that. We need to make sure that we're not going to be cutting supplemental nutrition to our low-income families, which, by the way, is also coming up. Thank you.
Bajun?
Good afternoon. Maybe, what?
Yes.
Apparently.
Short.
I confused my NCO voice. I'm pretty sure everyone can hear. There we go. My name is Bajun Mavalwalla. Bajun rhymes with? Cajun. Mavalwalla rhymes with? Walla Walla. If you still have trouble, just remember that Bajun Mavalwalla backwards is Alawabal Najab. You should have no trouble whatsoever. I am a candidate for Congress. I live up in beautiful Stevens County. So in case y'all are feeling a little bit red, I invite you to come to my cabin. I would want to talk about the issues of all the questions that you're going to have, and we will answer those. But I want to start with the most important thing. I am in this to defeat Michael Baumgartner. I am not in this for a respectable loss come November. My campaign has started and stopped with rural voters and going to every single voter, not just telling Democrats to vote harder. We have to go and reach across the aisle or we lose. All right? Now, when I've been to all of these rural areas, I have actually been walking in the neighborhoods, going and talking with these people. That's what matters. I guarantee you I'm the only Democrat at my VFW meeting in Chewelah, but half of them are supporting me. Because we have messages that are neither Democratic nor Republican, they are American. And those are the things where we need to do our outreach. I am not going to accept that you cannot elect a Democrat in this district. We had one for 30 years. Let's follow that lead.
Thank you. Nate?
Thank you for having me. My name is Nate Powell. I'm an independent candidate for Congress here in the 5th District. I grew up in Spokane. You think it needs a little tighter here? grew up in Spokane, went to public school. I graduated high school in 2005. 2 weeks after that, I joined the Marine Corps, enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2005. I was in from 2005 to 2009 as an aviation ordnance tech, stationed down in Yuma, Arizona. Took a couple of deployments, both on boats. Got out in 2009, went to college for a couple of years, and dropped out of college when I got a job at the fire department working for IAFF Local 29 Spokane firefighters. So I've been a union firefighter for the last 14 years. And it is in that work that I have been into the homes and seen the problems in our communities that you can only see by being inside somebody's house. Where a lack of access to food and health care creates more disorder within our communities, in our cities, in our society, in our nation. And so I am focused on really basic issues, ones that you have heard a ton about. Affordability. We need labor protections and the right to organize so people can fight for higher wages. We need healthcare access in this country so all people can get that primary and preventative medicine that keeps them out of the emergency room. Medicare for all, a single-payer health system. And we also have to make sure that we are paying attention to the national debt. It is growing larger and larger. $40 trillion. It will crush us if we let it. It takes 20% of every dollar we send to the federal government. So our policies must address that as well. I'm running as an independent because since the 70s, both political parties have been chasing corporate money, and now our politicians and our government are working in the service of billionaires and multinational corporations, and the middle and working class is paying the price. The problems... Thank you. So fast.
It goes fast. David.
Hi, I'm David Womack, and I'm in this race to work for you. I'm sick and tired of politicians who say they're going to go to the other Washington and fight for us, and they go and they just fight each other. It's time that we work for you. And to make sure I'm addressing your priorities, I've been holding listening sessions all around the district, from Clarkston to Walla Walla, where I live, all the way north to Newport, to Colville, Chewelah, Cheney, all around the Spokane area. And here's what people are telling me their priorities are. And they won't surprise you because it's what we live every day. It's an economy that works for everybody. It's affordable and accessible health care for everybody. It's supporting agriculture and our public lands. And it's protecting our rights and our safety. In that last piece, protecting our rights and our safety. I'm a retired Air Force colonel, and at 23 years old, when I raised my hand and defend, and swore that oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, much like several veterans up here and Carmela in the State Department did, that oath never expired. So I am now called to go back and fight for those rights and those safety and all those other things there because it is under threat from this administration. From this administration and its enablers like Michael Baumgartner. So in addition to being a retired colonel, I ran 2 civilian rural hospitals after that. For a while, I was the CEO right up the road here in Colfax of that hospital. I've also been a senior vice president of a very large healthcare organization. And to do those jobs like that successfully, you have to bring people to the table.
Okay.
And there we go.
Thank you. I know.
You're our favorite time.
Yeah, she is really on top of things. Okay, we're going to start with the questions now. We'll have 1 minute. We're hoping that we can get through everybody's question. That's why I'm keeping it short. But if you're in the middle of a sentence, they can finish the sentence. Come on. So, please get your cards into us so we can get this going. I alternate, so I'm going to start with this first question with Carmela. Do you have a solution for the pending insolvency of Social Security and Medicare?
Scrap the cap. That'd be one solution, and that would solve the problem. We've also got issues with small business owners. If you're a small business owner, or if you're in the gig economy, that means you're paying both the employer's half of it and the employee's half of it. So small business owners in that situation are paying almost 12.5% into Social Security. That ought to be fairer. Small business owners ought to get a break in that. But my nieces and nephews who live here in Eastern and Central Washington, they're paying 6.5% into Social Security. An attorney who makes $500,000 a year pays a 0.5% of that. They only pay 3% or less of their income. So we need to make that fair. High income earners should be paying more into the system in the same way that school teachers and firefighters and correctional officers are. And we shouldn't be giving high income earners a break on Social Security. If everybody paid their fair share, we wouldn't be in trouble. Thank you.
Thank you. Kevin, you're up next. Same question.
Absolutely agree. We have to scrap the Social Security cap on earning limits so that people who make 125 pay the same, or don't pay the same as people who make millions in salary. But that gets back to the same root of the issue and why we will continue to have a federal budget deficit and continue to run into the same problems with corporate and billionaire influence in our politics is we need to tax the wealth of billionaires in order to create solvency with our federal government. Because they can continue to create accounting loopholes. If we only create these taxes within Washington state, those billionaires will leave to go to other states where they're not taxed. And so our federal government needs to take responsibility and tax billionaires for the wealth that they own directly. And so they can avoid these loopholes that they take by not taking high salaries. So you can increase the capital gains tax for one, so that it matches income tax. You can also sorry, I lost my train of thought. But you can also increase other taxes on billionaires directly. Thank you.
Richard Freudenberg. All right, so I agree. Unfortunately, removing the cap, and if you don't know what Carmela was mentioning, the cap stops at about $174,000. So basically, if you make over that amount, you don't pay any more after that. And a lot of people don't realize that because most people don't earn that kind of money. That said, it's important to understand there are two parts to Social Security. One is what we identify as retirement, but there's also disability. And the disability with Social Security is broke. I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to experience that, but I've talked to a lot of people that have. And it hasn't been really renovated significantly in about 50 years. So we need to not only address the problems with what we identify as the retirement portion of Social Security, but we also need to spend a significant amount of effort addressing the disability portion, because there are a lot of retirees that would otherwise would qualify for the disability portions as well. And that will help offset some of the costs that some of the retirees are dealing with. Again, that if we don't fix this in the next thank you so much. If we don't fix this in the next 6 to 7 years, we're looking at a 22.5% cut, and that's unacceptable.
Thank you. Bajun?
These folks, we're all going to be in violent agreement on the things that we're going to be doing on Social Security. We obviously have to look at the top end people paying their fair share in, and what are the benefits going to be. I think we need to look a little bit beyond that as well, which is, do we want to expand the system, not just save it? Because we have to be understanding if we want a system that has a safety net for our elderly and for our those who are disabled or need assistance, then we have to make some very tough choices. Are we going to pay for it? None of these things come free, and soaking the rich is not enough to do it. That means some of us are going to have to be reaching into our own pockets more if we want to do those things. I believe that most Americans I talk to are ready to put a little bit more into it. If you have elderly parents or are elderly yourself, you understand just what a burden it is to take care of our own family members.
Thank you. Nate?
So the question was, how are we going to protect Social Security and Medicaid? All the way up here underneath the chin. I agree with the table. So it starts with removing the cap so that we can create a longer runway. We have more time to address this problem. It starts and then moves on into a tax system that ensures the people who have benefited the most from our economy reinvest in this country and the people of this country. To protect Medicaid, we need Medicare for all. To move those costs away from Medicaid into a Medicare for all system, so we are all sharing the burden of the health of our community, so we can have these better long-term health outcomes as we get better health outcomes because people have the care that they need. So we have to pay for these programs. We have to decide where we are spending our money, and if we want to spend it across the ocean in foreign wars, or if we want to spend it on the people in this country.
David?
So I believe the question
Yes.
was
I
Social
know.
Security and Medicare.
Yes.
Medicare, right, okay. Scrap the cap. Thanks for the phrase, Carmela. I hope you don't mind if I borrow it. I love it. Scrap the cap. And it's $184,500 is what the current cap is. So if you make more than that, you stop paying Social Security. So if you do that, the projections are that makes Social Security solvent for the current level of benefits for like the next 70 years. Okay? So Medicare, if we open Medicare to people below 65 years old, people will flood into the Medicare system. They will buy in. If they have the choice between their current healthcare system with their employer or to buy into it, all of a sudden Medicare has a young, healthy risk pool. That will solve Medicare. That will make it solvent.
Thank you. So this next question will start with
Well,
Ken.
hold on there.
It's so far away.
It's working this time. Okay. $1.5 trillion was the cost of Social Security in 2024. The cost of our health care was $4.9 trillion. Universal health care would have cost $3.8 trillion. That's $1.1 trillion in excess money we paid, which could nearly fund Social Security on its own. But the bigger question is, why are we not asking where our money is? They take IOUs whenever there's an overage on that, and they just forget to bring that up later when they talk about insolvency. There was over $30 trillion in IOUs from the years there were overages, and that never gets brought up anymore. They have no problem increasing the national debt when it comes to funding their corporate partners. They have no problems with pet projects. Why do we prioritize that rather than us? We need to prioritize the people. You paid into that. I paid into that. I want my Social Security. And I'm not asking, I'm demanding the same that you are. There's enough. Where is our money? Give it to us. We've earned it. Yes, we are entitled. That's why it's an entitlement program. We paid into it. Did I go past my time?
So I don't pay attention, sometimes I just get on the rant there.
Thank you. We're gonna move off that topic. So we're starting with Kevin. What specifically will you work on to improve the economy in this district?
Great question. I think a lot of us have that on our minds right now. And especially we'll focus on one thing, and specifically around the fears of AI and data centers. And a lot of us in rural communities and in urban communities, we're worried about data centers coming in and taking essentially what is our energy and water for corporate gain. And at the same time, powering artificial intelligence that is absolutely gutting our workforce, especially in my generation, where we have no idea what college degrees to get with a future that we don't know which jobs will be. And so I absolutely support Green New Deal programs that provide significant federal investment into this region for all areas. So whether that's out in the Palouse, whether that's up in our forest country in Stevens County, we have roads, bridges, and so many things that need to be repaired. And so we need to rapidly deploy federal investment into our workforce and infrastructure.
1 minute is not enough time to address this. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to try to hit some big points. First of all, we need to certainly make sure that Medicare for all is available. That's off the top. We need to make sure people have access to health care. We need to make sure we're securing Social Security. We need to make sure that individuals that have access to Social Security, that they are getting the benefits that they paid into. We also need to make sure that our economy is working for everybody and the working class. We need, the most productive our country has been between 1945 and 1965. That is the most productive we have been. That's when we actually developed our working class. The working class is extraordinarily important to a productive economy. That is, and I'm going to be fighting for the working class. I'm also a very strong believer of unions. That's why I've also been endorsed by the National Conference of Firemen and Oilers. So I believe very strongly that we're going to take care of our people by giving them the benefits that they need to ensure that they're not going to be subject or needing the social programs that we have, such as supplemental nutrition, such as Medicaid. If they can, most people want to be productive members of society, and that is what I want to make sure they're able to do.
Cajun? Good job. I mean,
Let's talk about basic economics here. This district is agricultural. The first thing we need to do is ensure that the farm bill is passed on time to make sure that our farmers have access to the current market economy. That is the idea of a farm bill. Another thing that we need to be looking at is, where is our infrastructure money? Have you seen your broadband? Have you seen that money coming to our district? That's because our representative isn't fighting for our share of it. There's other things in our economy that we have been talking about, which is great, but let's put it into what really matters. We need to unwind the one big beautiful bill. Our rural hospitals are on the chopping block starting in 2027. Dayton's largest employer is the hospital. And another thing that maybe people should know, and I thank you for bringing up the data centers, did y'all know that the port in Walla Walla sold their property to Bezos for data centers? Those are things we need to be looking at, folks.
thank you.
Once again, the question was about the economy here in Eastern Washington. And so there's two prongs to it. And one of them is Medicare for All. Medicare for All is a jobs program that allows labor to move and small businesses to compete for that labor against the big corporations on wages, hours, and working conditions, and not on health insurance. It lets workers move job to job. That's what Medicare for All would do for us. And then we need a massive reinvestment into infrastructure in this region, but across this entire country. It would create jobs immediately. That investment would create jobs immediately, but that infrastructure are the basic building blocks to our economy, those transportation networks, so that businesses can get their products to market. That is why we need a massive reinvestment in the infrastructure in this country to help with the economy. Thank you.
David?
So, I agree with investing in infrastructure, and certainly repealing the effects of the big beautiful bill, or whatever you wish to call it, that erected barriers to Medicaid and took away a lot of the ACA subsidies. A lot of people don't realize that 20% of farmers actually get their health care through the ACA because they don't have employer-sponsored insurance. So those are important for that. But in addition to that, we really need to support the agriculture. We need to take a look at the tariffs. Congress needs to take that back from the administration and put it where it belongs. Tariffs should be used strategically to protect American jobs and to create long-term trade deals with our partners. When those tariffs were taken over by the administration, it destroyed markets that farmers and the food industry has spent decades building. So that's another thing we can do in addition to the other things that have already been mentioned.
Thank you. Andrew?
How about this idea? Sorry. How about this? We end the scam of trickle-down economics that's been perpetuated on us for 40 plus years and try something new like trickle-up economics where we benefit first. How about instead of spending $250 billion in corporate welfare, we use that to fund everybody's undergraduate tuition at a public university, which we do for $150 billion, and have $100 billion left over for, I don't know, doubling the amount we spend on K through 12 education, providing trade schools. We can do a lot of good things with that other than providing corporate welfare. We need to invest that money in ourselves. You know who benefits from a fully educated society? The people do, and the corporations. The employers benefit from having workers that aren't saddled with tens of thousands of dollars in student loan debt stressing them out. If they can begin take other positions, not worrying about, I won't be able to live on that amount because I got my student loan debt, I got my rent, I got my food, I got my car. Just get rid of that. We shouldn't be charging people for wanting to improve themselves. You shouldn't be saddled $50,000 in student loan debt because you want an education. And that goes for adults and younger folks. We all could use more education. It benefits everybody.
Carmela?
A lot of our communities that I've spoken with, folks up and down the district, are on the border with the state of Idaho. And what people see, especially in small towns, are employers, especially the big box stores, playing Washington and Idaho off against each other to try to get better benefits. So one thing that we could do that would not raise our taxes, but would raise all boats, or at least put a floor under it, would be a federal minimum wage indexed to inflation. And I would start the bidding around 25 bucks an hour. And there's going to be some negotiation back and forth. I don't think we get it there to start with. But that's something that would insist that large corporations pay their workers enough to live on so that they are not privatizing their profits and socializing the cost to live by paying people less than what it takes to live, even if they're working full-time or more. So let's get that federal minimum wage up there, put it on the corporations, and let the lowest income people come up to a working wage. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to switch gears here. This will be starting with Richard. If you were chair of the committee in Congress, would you agree to vote on removing the 4 lower Snake River dams? What would you do to honor the Treaty of 1833 in protection of salmon?
So we actually had an agreement that was in place prior to the Trump administration to address the dam issue that you're talking about. That treaty actually was an agreement between Oregon, Washington, and quasi-Idaho, and also the applicable tribes to work toward a plausible solution. The details of the treaty are a little more complicated, but basically it was going to require an alternative solution to address the energy potential losses related to the dams. But it's also important to realize that that would come with a significant economic impact for the transiting of the resources, the trade that goes along the river. So we've got to find solutions to address all of those concerns. I don't believe that solution comes necessarily by one entity dictating it to another one, but it's going to require direct engagement with our tribes, with the states, and with the federal government. Now, the Trump administration cut some of the funds to try to help address that with regards to that plan. I disagree with that. And if I were elected to Congress, we're going to get those funds back. We're going to get it back, and we're going to get that plan back on track to make sure that works. Thank you.
Thank you.
The dams. Okay, I want to talk about some basic economics once again. 1 barge of wheat is the equivalent of 18 truck and trailer loads of wheat. The cost of transporting that wheat without the river traffic is prohibitive. So we have to be looking at a long-term solution. We have 8 years left on the current agreement that the tribes settled for 2 years ago. So now is the time to be working on those. I've seen some very interesting proposals from guys at the Corps of Engineers about the possible removal of the dams, but I am not sold on anything until I see better studies. If you lower the water table on the river, did you know those rail lines along the river will collapse? It is the hydraulic pressure from the water that is keeping them in place. So you're going to have some additional costs on there, and there is no way for me to answer the rest of that question.
Thank you.
The question was about the Snake River dams. And I would not vote to remove the Snake River dams. As we've talked about, they are an important economic transport corridor for us. Moving our product to market would create more CO2 in the atmosphere if we did not use the barges, which are enabled by the dams. There needs to be a reinvestment, an infrastructure reinvestment in those dams to update them. New turbines could help the salmon. But if we are making a decision between being able to barge the economic product of Eastern Washington to the port in Oregon and the salmon, I am not going to kill off the backbone of our economy, even though I do love salmon.
David?
So not honoring the treaty is a symptom of a lot of our government problems today. It's a lack of integrity. We made those treaties. We need to figure out a way. Now, I'm also a realist, and I realize that there's a lot of complicating factors. But the plan that Richard talked about, that was a beautiful piece of work. It's called the Simpson Plan amongst a lot of people. It was led by a Republican from Idaho who put that together, who brought everybody to the table, built a coalition around a long-term plan of these things we need to address. And the Trump administration killed it. I fully support re-implementing that plan if we can get those same people back to the table, if we haven't completely broken trust with it.
Thank you. Andrew?
As for the energy issue, it only provides about 4% of the energy needed there in the Tri-Cities. But more importantly, it really only provides energy in the spring runoff, in the fall, not in the summer and the winter. We need the power the most and lower the bills. More importantly, yes, we do have a treaty. We honor treaties. We need to be keeping our word. And I know a lot of grain gets hauled on there. It's going to be $5–10 billion to maintain those dams for the next 30 to 40 years. Put that money to more infrastructure, improve the rail lines, make it possible, work together. You know, this is one of those great opportunities where us as people, even though we have differences, different backgrounds, we can all work together. The tribes, the farmers, everyone. And find a best solution that works for the entire state. We don't need those dams. We can find other sources of energy. We can find other ways to transport the grain. We're all going to be impacted, but it's one of those things where, you know, as people, we just got to come together. We're not always going to get everything we want, but as long as we get a lot of what we need, we should be happy if everybody else is happy as well. Come in agreement together and wanting all to be happy and have the best lives that we can.
Thank you. Carmela?
The federal government is responsible for federal infrastructure that has become vital to the economy here in Eastern Washington. And farmers from Asotin County all the way up to Adams County rely on those barges, both to get agricultural inputs in as well as to get their commodity crops out. And Michael Baumgartner was okay with ending the settlement that helped move forward from a decades-long litigation that had tied up an investment in those dams. Without federal investment, those dams are going to fail. They're going to fail the fish as well as the farmers. So we have got to turn the investment back on and honor our treaty as well as our constitutional duties. And Michael Baumgartner stands in the way of that because he wants to talk about people being woke instead of what we actually need to follow the law, support the farmers, and support the fish.
Thank you. Kevin?
Do I support the removal of the lower Snake River dams? Yes, I do. Because I've also read that study that was put together by a Republican from Idaho. Is this mic working? Sorry, hard to hear from me, sorry. So, yes, I do support it. And I think it's very easy. I'd say I don't support any solution that does not have significant federal investment in farmers to make sure they don't bear the costs of any dam removal or energy removal as well. But like we said, those dams don't produce significant energy. They're run of the river, and they're only active 20 to 30% of the time anyways. We need to focus on the economic benefits that they bring long term. Because in the absence of these dams being removed, salmon will go extinct on the lower Snake River. That is a fact. They will go extinct in the wild. And when those salmon go extinct, that loses all. Not only are you violating tribal sovereignty, you're also losing significant opportunity for tourism and investment in the region. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to start this next question with Bajun. will you reinstate federal subsidies for clean energy, or green, is that green? Yeah. Green energy production that will replace the hydro production of the Lower Snake River Dam?
Okay, did we lose this? Okay. Green energy has another name. It's called energy. Now, I'll tell you all a little anecdotal story real quick because I only have 45 seconds left. I was out in beautiful Garfield County, and I met the chair of the Republican Party out there, who assured me that the greatest threat to their way of life and to farmers was windmills. Now, I don't know if she read Don Quixote recently. I don't know exactly what it is that makes her believe that, but we have to look at energy as an investment. Renewable energy is simply energy. The subsidies are what make it possible for private industry to make more efficient forms of energy. Windmills used to not generate enough energy to support the construction of a windmill. Now they produce plenty of extra. We'll talk more.
The question was about subsidizing green energy to replace hydroelectric power generated in the region. I don't advocate for getting rid of our hydroelectric power, which I think is a very good source of clean energy, but I also don't support subsidies for energy. But that is because green energy, clean energy, now is cheaper per kilowatt hour than fossil fuels. So we no longer have to subsidize specific industries to move towards the low carbon energy production that we are going to need moving into the future. Australia has so much solar energy that for the brightest part of the day, their energy cost is zero. We can have a clean, energy abundant future, and we don't even need to subsidize them. It is the most economic way to produce energy currently.
David?
Well, for green energy and specific subsidies to the dams, I would refer back to the Simpson plan and see what is needed there. And if it needs to be subsidized to make it happen, so be it. If it doesn't, as Nate described, if it can pay for its own way, even better. In general, it is way past time when we reinstate what we were working on just a few short years ago to move towards a much greener energy future. Imagine if we weren't dependent on oil. Think of the wars that have been fought over oil that would evaporate overnight. We need to move that way, not just for our climate, but for our future, for our children, for the peace of the world, and for our own pocketbooks.
Thank you. Andrew?
I think Brad made pretty clear earlier, I'm tired of subsidizing corporations. If there's demand for the energy, which there is, they will build it. And then they will charge it to us like they always do. If we subsidize it, they'll still charge it to us. And then
I'm sorry, am I being too loud?
Yes.
And then they will tell us that there's going to be a 20% rate increase like they always do. They'll take our money for the subsidies, they'll charge us, they'll find a reason why they need to increase the price, they'll say it's not because of a data center or some other reason, just because they got to raise the rates to keep up. So no, we don't need to subsidize it. These are for-profit companies. Stop subsidizing it. We built dams. We pay more money every year in power. Why are we continuing this process? It's time to stop it. Say no. You want to talk about free markets? You want to talk about capitalism? Sounds like socialism to me, where the government's funding all these corporations. But when it comes to us and benefiting us, when we want things, that's when they pull the socialism card out. But not when it comes to corporate interests. So no, stop subsidizing them. Subsidize the people. Take care of our needs.
Carmela?
Could I ask you to repeat the question? Because
Yes.
I've heard many different versions.
Will you reinstall federal subsidies for green energy production that will replace hydro production of the lower Snake River dams if they're removed.
If those dams are removed, it will be decades down the road before that happens. I would like to reinstate the funding that was made available under the Infrastructure Act a couple of Congresses ago, because there were people in this district who paid for who paid for equipment so that they could make their farms greener, that they could make their business operations more sustainable. And it was intended to be on a reimbursement basis, that they would buy those inputs and the federal government would reimburse them. And people have had to take out emergency loans to pay for equipment that they bought in accordance with that federal law, which Michael Baumgartner voted to rescind the funding for. So we've got to restore people and keep the federal government's word to them, especially if they were investing based on those incentives to go ahead and turn things green, because climate change is real, folks.
Thank you. Kevin?
Climate change is real. Yeah, I agree. And we can end the green energy subsidies as soon as we end the $25 billion fossil fuel subsidies that the federal government hands directly to fossil fuel corporations every year. And we can also ban the fossil fuel lobbyists from coming to Capitol Hill. And then we can end the green energy subsidies. But I also want to talk about the opportunity that clean and green energy represents for this district, because we have an incredible opportunity. Obviously, you see wind farms dotting the horizon. There's a small community in Texas, and a wind developer came to town and promised to build wind farms on land that wasn't necessarily being used for higher and better value. And every year, $2 million goes back to that community, goes back to that small rural community. They invested in their community center, and they invested in programs that fund early childhood learning. And so when we think about clean energy and green energy in this district, I want us to view it as an opportunity to revitalize our rural communities that really need it. Thank you.
Thank you. When you're using the mic, don't hold it too close to your, because that distorts it for our recording.
So, Richard.
We can't use the microphone, but we want to make decisions for the country.
Okay, so Richard Freudenberg again. Here's where I'm at. We had a deal that basically required the federal government to provide subsidies to businesses. That process, that program is now in federal court again. It is going to be delayed again. I understand that we don't want to subsidize private industry. I'm not a fan of that either. At the same time, if we break the deal now and we have to start over again, it's going to delay the entirety of the process longer. Again, I'm not a fan of subsidies. None of us should be. But we need to make sure that that deal moves forward. And very candidly, it's an infrastructure project that is going to bring jobs, it's going to bring power, it's going to bring solutions that we need to have in our economy, and it's going to bring them at the speed that we need them. And that's going to be what's most important. If we don't subsidize, it comes, but it comes at a slower rate. We need to have it now. We need the power now. So, thank you.
Thanks. We are the League of Women Voters, and we have 3 questions on voting. They sound the same, but they really aren't if you listen to them. So we're going to start with Nate. The first one is, how would you vote on the SAVE Act?
Real quick. Yeah,
Do you want to use the mic?
I don't think I'm going to use the mic unless you really need me to.
They need to record it.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Okay, and the recording does not work unless I use the mic, is that right? Okay, so I would vote against the SAVE Act. It is not written in a way that it achieves its goals. I do not think that voter fraud is a large problem in this country, no matter how much one person would like to make you think that it is. So you had 3 questions.
Oh, I'm going to ask each of them after. We're all going to go through and then, yeah. So, David.
I will vote against the SAVE Act. I said that to the Republican Women's Club in Colville on Thursday evening, and I got a lot of eye rolls there. And I got more eye rolls when I explained why. Because voter fraud, voting by non-citizen, is virtually non-existent in America. The Heritage Foundation, the most conservative group you can imagine, did a study between 2003 and 2022, 20 years. They found 23 cases out of the hundreds of millions of votes cast in 20 years. I would much rather Congress be working on things that matter to us every single day than wasting their time on that.
Andrew?
Oh, that's a big no for me. Sorry. That's a big no for me. It's very easily disguised to be, stay back. It's because they don't want women to vote. Because they know that you don't support most Republican policies. If you don't have your maiden name on your driver's license, or whatever form of ID they decide is acceptable, they just stop you from voting. My daughter back there voting in her first election. I will not let that happen. You got Doug Wilson over the way there. He don't want women to vote. He don't want anybody but his people to vote. No, this is a scam. There is no election fraud. Look, if there was, the Heritage Foundation would have been all over it. All those groups, they would publish it. Frankly, when they do find it, guess who's getting arrested? The Republicans. All right? Guess who just recently got caught with voter fraud? Ken Paxton down in Texas, voting and outside his district. So come on now. Republicans, this is a scam. You're always trying to point voter fraud. Accept your losses, move on, save democracy, show some love to the women.
Thank you. Carmela?
I think we're all in agreement on this. The SAVE Act is a scam. It is a solution in search of a problem. And the problem that it will create is for women, for rural voters who have a tougher time getting to a voting site rather than just being able to drop it in the mail, and may not have been born in a hospital, which means that their documentation might not be easily accessible or cheaply accessible. It's a pit against tribal communities because tribal sovereign ID doesn't count as citizenship for the purposes of the SAVE Act. And you know who loves the SAVE Act? Michael Baumgartner. Last time I looked at his Twitter account, he's got it pinned saying that he was proud to support this common sense need for identification. It's not just any identification, it's a citizenship document every time you vote, and that is nonsense.
Oh, sorry, Kevin.
Thanks. Ditto. So that's a no. And I think just to add on to what others were saying, that frankly this is a Hail Mary last-ditch effort by the Republican Party to try to save their midterms and save their butts ahead of what is looking to be a not-so-pretty election for them. And so it's a pretty bad faith effort on a virtually non-existent issue, that is true. And so I would absolutely not vote for the SAVE Act. Thank you.
Richard?
Richard Freudenberg. I would not vote for the SAVE Act. I actually got into a debate with this with Representative Baumgartner's office on Thursday. And it was interesting. I can tell you, I'm an attorney, I'm a JAG. I read the law, word for word, the entirety of it. And he was giving me information that wasn't 100% accurate. I'm going to put it as kindly as I can. The bottom line is this. It requires states within 30 days to do a reporting requirement. Once you're removed from the rolls, you have to fight to get back on. Military IDs don't qualify. Real IDs don't qualify. These are most common for people to have. Your driver's license doesn't qualify to get back on the system, and so you're going to need basically a photo identification with a birth certificate, with a marriage certificate, if your name is different than your birth certificate. That's more than you need for a social security card. So at the end of the day, I'm not in favor of it. I don't support it, and it is designed to disenfranchise women.
Thank you. Bajun?
My two granddaughters have fewer rights today than my mother had in 1974. These are attacks on half of our population, our mothers, our sisters, aunts, our cousins, and our brothers. So, absolutely not. I don't think there's going to be any disagreement on our opposition for it. But there's another downstream one on this one, and that's identification. The reason that you don't have voter ID laws is because it's a poll tax. You have to go and pay in order to vote. And for somebody, for example, someone who is poor, lives in a rural area, or lives in a rural area, or lives in a inner city, they have to go down and pay for an ID, taking a day off work. They lose money. Republicans haven't forgotten poll taxes. They love it.
Thank you. So we're gonna, the next question on voting, we'll start with David. Do you think voting should be in person and same day as election day as it used to be?
Well, I'm a big fan of our system here in Washington where we vote 100% by mail. Being a retired military guy and having run hospitals, that it makes it so much more convenient for our troops who are serving overseas or just in the next state over from their home when they need to, when it comes time to vote. For doctors and nurses working a 12-hour shift, to go stand in a line is just crazy. For rural people to have to drive to the county courthouse, I mean, it's nuts. So, no, I don't agree with that. We keep our way of doing it here in Washington. It works great, it's safe, it's secure, love it.
Thank you. Andrew?
Lauren, start way down here, all right? Clearest indication there's no fraud of mail-in voting. Half people that are eligible to vote don't. So you'd think if you wanted to go and manipulate the vote, you might just submit a few of those ballots and have numbers a little bit higher, but half don't. And why don't we ask the opposite question when it comes to the in-person voting? If you're going to mandate in-person voting, are you going to mandate people get time off of work? Are you going to mandate equal opportunity to get to the vote and not have polling locations separated by great distances in an area you don't want people to vote, where they gotta wait hours out in the sun? Are you guys gonna let them have water and snacks in line, chairs even? Are you gonna make it a process they want to participate in? Or are you gonna make them miserable when you're out there in the sun, baking, unable to have any water access? But if you live in a different part of town, you might just be able to walk into your library and get it done real quick. So no, it's a BS question. The premise of it, mail-in voting works great. There's no issues with it. Washington has mail-in voting because Washington is awesome. Just like Washington put the Paid and Family Medical Leave Act, so you have that benefit. And why Washington gave you paid leave when the pandemic happened, because people working in restaurants where else always had to go to work when you're sick. Washington's awesome.
And one of the reasons Washington State is awesome is because we've had vote from home for over 20 years. And for the vast majority of that time, that was under a Republican Secretary of State. And so, right, mail-in voting, voting from home gives the greatest amount of access to the ballot, and that's what we should want for all of our citizens. And I didn't really appreciate how good we had it here until I was talking to some friends who moved up from Texas because they were no longer safe. They could no longer get the health care they needed in Texas, so they moved to Washington State. And they said they thought it was a scam the first time they saw their ballot because they couldn't believe it was going to be that easy. It should stay that easy. And we do have it good, and we ought to all have it that good.
Remind me one more time, it's just supporting or not supporting the
Yeah,
same
do
day.
you think voting should be in person and same day as election day, as it used to be 20 years ago?
No, I don't. I think we have, again, like many have talked about, a great system here. And I think it's a system that we should replicate and try to implement nationally, because there is very little voter fraud. It does improve accessibility and access to voting. And what are we, as the United States of America, if we can't improve access to our fundamental basic right of voting? And so, absolutely in support of keeping Washington's system the same and bringing it to other states nationwide so people can experience just how easy it is. Thank you.
Richard?
So I'm fully in support of what Washington does in terms of its vote. I'm all behind it. At the same time, I would never stand in the way of trying to find a path to enable the maximum voter participation that we can have. If we wanted to have this in addition to help our students, our college students, try to come up and say, you know what, I want to vote today, this is my year. I turned 18, I'm a freshman at college, I show up and say, you know what, I want to be here, I want to do this, I'm not opposed to it. I'm not going to stand in their way because I want maximum participation. With that said, voting by mail, for the vast majority of us, is the way to go, and I strongly support that. But I'm not going to stand in the way of people getting people out to vote. And if that requires a same-day vote, that's fine with me. I don't care how we get there. I just want everybody voting. I would like to see every single person that is eligible in every district voting.
Thank you, Bajun.
My brother Andrew reminded us all of what this is all about. You remember those long lines in Georgia, hot days, and people not allowed to get water in line? That's the idea. The whole point is to keep people from voting. Now, I think that we need to be looking at a bunch of different options. I'm not altogether sure that a surprise package at the end of an election is a good idea. I don't see why they don't make it public how the balloting is going. That may well encourage people to go out and vote. And if you, then I see someone shaking your head. Come see me afterwards because I'd like to hear your case. I do not see any logic line that says that that is necessary. What I do want to make sure is that everybody has access to the polls and the opportunity to cast a ballot without having to pay to get there, and without having to stand in a long line to get there, and with having plenty of days besides a single day to cast that ballot.
Nate.
Once again, the question was around same-day voting.
Yes, in person.
In-person same-day voting. We are in Washington State, the most accessible voting probably in the whole country. I consistently vote with my mail-in ballot. It is incredibly convenient. I love it. And it is a purview of the states, how they want to run their elections. And so at the federal level, we should not be telling the states how they run their elections. I would like to see a national holiday for our elections. Automatic voter registration, so that we can increase the number of people that are engaging in our democracy. I am not in favor of forcing same-day in-person voting.
Thank you. You started that one.
I know I started it, but I do want to point out that the president voted by mail.
Okay, the last one on voting. And like I said, these are all a little bit different, so. And we're going to start with Andrew. What is your plan for ensuring access to the ballot, the right to vote, and ensuring an accurate ballot count? Now, you notice I did not say timely. I said accurate.
Well, as far as accuracy, and I bet everybody else here knows, hopefully you sent your volunteers, but when you run, you get to send volunteers to go to training to observe the ballot counting process. That's how we ensure that it's done fairly. Every party, every representative, everybody running for auditor, commissioner, whatever it might be, you're entitled to have your own observers. Second of all, it's a ballot. It's a physical piece of paper that you put in the mail. It doesn't just magically disappear when it's open. That's how you audit the election. You can count those ballots. When it's really close, you can count them by hand, and you can verify that the numbers match. Again, there is no issues with elections. This is just designed to create fear that they stole the election, our party. January 6th, man, that was a damn insurrection. And it's just disappeared now. You stormed the Capitol because you just can't accept a loss? That's loser behavior, I'm sorry. Step up, you lose, that's like flipping the board off the table because you lost the game of chess or the game of Monopoly and you just get mad and storming off. That's not respectable. And just have, I'm sorry, no offense to you for asking these questions, I think it's important, but I think we all just need to step up and say, this conversation is getting ridiculous because there's, as I guess Hillary Clinton would say, it's a nothing burger.
Carmela.
I do agree
that the reasons that people are giving for the Save America Act are ridiculous, but we do rely on our county auditors to do the right thing every single time there's an election. And in 2022, Spokane County had an issue where we had a completely unqualified Republican candidate challenging our incumbent county auditor, who was the only Democrat in Spokane County in a countywide position. And had an election denier been elected to that position, I'm not sure that we would be confident in Spokane County's ballot. So it's important that everybody in this room make sure that they fill out and vote for their county auditor, that they know who that person is, and that we make sure that we continue our quality election services here, because it's set at the state level, but our county auditor matters. So please be sure to look at that race on your ballot this year as well. Thank you.
Second that. Verify.
Sorry, we're having mic trouble.
I'll try not to press it. All right. Totally agree about the county auditor, and that's great. I also include, for the sake of transparency and confidence in our elections, that I'm sure many of us love having as voters. One of my favorite tools that I got, that you can sign up for text reminders about when both when your ballot is received and then when it is approved from your local office. And as a voter, as someone who submits that in the mail and doesn't really know where it goes, I love that idea of increasing the transparency for the people actually voting. And so you have more confidence at the end of the day. And it allows a direct line of communication between that auditor or Secretary of State's office to the voter themselves if there's any discrepancies on signatures, so they can be addressed and not thrown out. Thank you.
Richard.
So, I have no problem with what our voting is and how it works. I can tell you I've lost count of the numbers of individuals with whom I've had conversations with that need to be reminded of that. And what it is you got to walk through what that process is in Washington State. And it's important that we get it right. I am much less concerned about how long it takes. I'm more concerned about how we get it. And at the end of the day, I agree with Carmela 100% in that we got to make sure that we're choosing the right auditors. Because I've come across some individuals that are in that line of election denying. And that is concerning to me, because they would be responsible for counting ballots. So that said, we need to make sure that we're prudent in the choices that we're making insofar as who we're electing to be our county auditors. That said, we have a great process. I love our process, and I want us to continue down our process. And I do like what Kevin mentioned. I personally check my ballot every single time. I would encourage all of you to do the same. It is super easy. It takes about 30 seconds. You can do it on your phone. So, but just to make sure that you know that you've got your stuff checked in and it's good to go. Thank you.
By the way, that is votewa.gov.
Okay, I'm afraid I'm a victim of mission creep here. Can you repeat the original question, please?
Okay. What is your plan for ensuring access to the ballot and ensuring an accurate ballot counts?
Okay. Did I mention I am from Stevens County? Three of us here were up at the Grange with the Stevens County auditor candidates. One of them whom said God Almighty spoke to him directly to come and run for the office and will eliminate all of this electronic stuff, and they will all vote by hand and count them by hand. Anybody familiar with Shasta County, California? And what happened? And it cost a ton of money. It was in the millions to sit and count those ballots for weeks and weeks. It's ridiculous. So what will we do? We will support the diversity of this country as a strength. One of the reasons that this administration cannot take over this country and rig all the elections is there are 50 states that have their own integrity in their elections. Keeping that way is actually a security measure so that we do not have a central force taking away our access to the ballot.
Thank you. Nate?
I agree, the auditor is important. We have access to the ballot. That's the mail-in ballots. give us great access to our ballots. I think you said the timely is not important. I tend to think that having a somewhat timely count is important. People are looking on election day, waiting for that information. The more time adds more time for stories to be spun about whether those elections are rigged or not. I would support allowing mail-in ballots to start being counted the Monday before election day, so that on election day we have a more robust count of those mail-in ballots. I know when you were watching the outcomes of the elections, there are many outstanding ballots as a percentage. The percentage is high of outstanding ballots when they are calling races. Calling races and candidates are seceding that race before a good amount of ballots are counted.
David?
In Mavalwalla County, the hottest election this cycle is county auditor. For these very reasons, it's garnering the most angst and discussion in the community. So that is very important. In Congress, though, to support this, I would resist any attempt to nationalize our elections, to create a single process. I used to think it was crazy we had so many processes, but now I don't. I see the wisdom in our founders who set it up this way. It is almost impossible to truly rig the elections because it's so diverse. I would also support, to maintain access to everyone, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act that's pending.
Thank you. We're going back to policy. And we're starting with Carmela. The immigration policy of the present administration has destroyed many families and created an atmosphere of fear. How would you address this situation?
Well, what the administration is calling an immigration policy is an anti-immigrant policy. And I used to be in the business of border security from overseas when I helped screen people who were applying for visas to come to the United States or applying for documents that would prove they were American citizens. I take border security very seriously. This administration and Michael Baumgartner does not. Michael Baumgartner told a room full of Republican donors that he was going to have a private meeting with then Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy White House Chief of Staff Stephen Miller to talk about how he in his committee role could reinforce the administration's intent to terrorize people in our communities. We have got to get back to a humane and orderly system, and one of the things we need to do is take those border security assets out of our communities, redirect them to our borders and to ports, and defund DHS altogether until they follow the law.
Thank you. Kevin?
Our immigration policy is absolutely inhumane, and ICE is not some saint institution in the United States federal government. It was created just after 9/11 to serve specific customs and border processes. And so I would absolutely support abolishing ICE for the explicit reason that they have become corrupt top to bottom. Within this last year, they had thousands of established law enforcement professionals who had been doing their jobs, working on sex trafficking, human trafficking, actually finding the worst of the worst for people who were committing crimes. All of those people left under this new leadership. And then they hired, you probably saw their ads, $50,000, join today, take back our homeland. Who are the ones joining when they say take back our homeland? It's those people who were wearing masks on January 6th not that long ago. It's the same Proud Boys that are now emboldened by a badge on their shoulder. And so that's why I support abolishing ICE.
Richard?
Well, just on the news, we just had somebody else cut me in. ICE is a real problem. Bottom line is I would remove all of the political appointees within the Department of Homeland Security immediately. I would go after them as much as I could. I need to, all of the individuals, every single one of them has violated the law, needs to be held accountable. And then we need to have proper vetting of all of our ICE members, all of the individuals in the Department of Homeland Security. That vetting would have to include what is actually complying with the law to ensure that we have the right people in those positions, not only passing the test and following the law, but also passing the personality portions. Like the military actually has personality portions where we say, you're not the right person. I don't care if you can pass the test. You're not going to be it. We remove them from those programs, period, end of. I think that's what we need to be doing with ICE. The problem is we can't abolish an entire portion of a federal agency. They are significantly involved in the obtaining of evidence or investigating human trafficking. Human trafficking is a real problem in this area, specifically Spokane. But that said, I'll be happy to talk with you more. Thank you.
Respectfully, I'm going to disagree with Rich. You absolutely can and need to eliminate ICE. I don't know if you all know this, and back on my table you will find a link to the PBS NewsHour that tells the story. My son was arrested on the South Hill of Spokane by the FBI for nonviolently protesting against ICE in Spokane. He was convicted of aiding and abetting, a charge that was not added until halfway through the trial. Conspiracy. My son was acquitted of all the other charges. Now, if you don't think that that is something that needs to be looked at, I beg to differ. Also, I want to make sure that other people understand this. They can go to any one of your homes. ICE has the authority to write their own warrants without a judge. And they can kick in your door because they said so. That is entirely un-American.
Thank you.
Yep, the question was about
Immigration policy.
Immigration policy. Our immigration policy needs to work in the best interest of America, Americans, be orderly and humane. It has failed to do any of those three things under the current administration, and that is because we have taken our internal immigration enforcement away from where it should be. I think in the jails, when undocumented immigrants have contact with our law enforcement system, that is the time when our immigration enforcement agents should have contact with them, not on the streets, at work, in schools, in hospitals. It should be exclusively when undocumented immigrants have contact with the regular law enforcement system. But we have to start with a secure border. That immigration policy does not work if we don't know every single person coming into this country, but also have the bureaucratic robustness to process and vet everybody and have a quick timeline to legal status.
David?
Our immigration policy needs a complete overhaul. It hasn't had a good look, a good re-scrubbing of it since the 1990s. A lot has changed in the world since then. We had one, a bipartisan one, that was passed by the Senate and then rejected by the House because of phone calls that the current president made because he wanted to run on it coming up. But that's beside the point. We need that overhaul. And that overhaul has a few key things to it to me. Number one is we need to be a welcoming country for those asylum seekers and refugees. That is the best of who we are as Americans. Give me your tired, your poor. Let's let them come in an orderly fashion. Let's have a secure border. For our DACA folks, people who were brought here as children, they need to have a streamlined pathway to citizenship. And also, I'll be happy to talk with you more at the table.
Okay, Andrew.
Who's ready for some righteous indignation? All right. Making asylum claims is an international right for a reason. There's over 3 million cases backlogged in immigration courts. So why don't we put the money to better use to process that? But further, let's just go on to when we're not wanting immigrants here. I don't hear complaints when it's 95 degrees out and a new roof is getting put on by a bunch of Hispanic immigrants. Nobody's complaining then. When you go and you get some food cooked and the kitchen's hot as it is now, not complaining then. When you need some long-term care, you go to the hospital and the neck is from Philippines. You don't seem to care then, do we? No. As long as you're benefiting us, great. We don't have a problem with you being here. But when you're not, what, then you want to get rid of people? No, I'm sorry. And let's be real about what is going on here. Fascists like to pick the vulnerable population. That is who they target first. They condition you to accept inhumane treatment, and then they expand it to other people. So yeah, you might be snatching up immigrants off the street today, is dissidents tomorrow. They're talking about the communist, anything, people, the communists again, the communists. So yeah, it could be them today, tomorrow you, and who's going to stand there? We're not putting up with that.
Okay. Kevin, we're going to start with you for this next question. How would you work to repair trade relationships that have been lost through policies of the current administration?
60 seconds, go.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Yep, here we go. So, I mean, first it just starts by treating our allies like our actual allies, right? We can't operate with this act fast and break everything mentality that our strongman leader does right now. And so we need to remove a lot of the tariffs that were put on Tariff Day, Freedom Day, whatever that was called. And we need to take those back and only place them in strategic ways. Also, we need to recognize that we can't keep making threats directly at our allies when they don't support our military causes. And from a congressional standpoint, Congress can authorize certain programs and directions that make sure that our president and our funding goes towards those things that rebuild allies and relationships. So yeah, thank you.
Richard?
Congress, Richard Freudenberg again. Congress can absolutely withdraw that authority from the president. And that's something they absolutely need to do again, as soon as we can. The bottom line is the president has abused that authority, has abused that power, and that needs to stop. Our allies are our allies. There are some areas and some industries. For example, China needs tariffs. China's goal is to literally steal our technology and re-offer it to the entire world at a cheaper price because they didn't actually spend their cost to research it and develop it themselves. That's not okay. That said, Canada doesn't need tariffs. Mexico doesn't need tariffs. Denmark doesn't need tariffs. It's a population of 5 million people. So at the end of the day, we need to work with our allies, the ones that are working with us in all of our international affairs. We need to have a lot of positive engagement with all of our allies. A stable world is safer for all of us. We need to be in a situation, and what I would do specifically, I would take Trump's ability to impose tariffs away. I'd also try to show the world that because we understand what he has done, we're going to work with them to fix it.
Adrian?
There's a word, and I'm not trying to cast shade on anybody, but I want to make sure that we're using the right word. It's not strategic for tariffs. The word is surgical. They have to be very specific to each country and the trade situation with each one of those before we start talking about using tariffs. And they're usually mutually agreed to. That's another important part of trade. I am generally a free trader. My concern about the tariffs with China is, as we have learned, anybody remember Smoot-Hawley? Anybody remember Ferris Bueller's Day Up? Smoot-Hawley, anybody, Bueller? What happened? We sunk deeper into depression because the other country could put tariffs in too. Ask the soybean farmers who have lost $40 billion in trade with China. Because we put tariffs on other things, they simply cut it off, and now they buy their soybeans from Argentina. So I'm a big believer in free trade.
Can you remind me of the question real quick?
How would you work to repair trade relations that have been lost through the current administration policies?
So this is a problem that is going to take decades to recover from. But we need to be a trustworthy, reliable, rational partner, specifically with our allies, but all of our trade partners. We talked about bringing back those tariff authorities into Congress. That is in this Constitution a power of Congress to set tariffs. So we have found that the checks and balances of our government rely on a Congress acting as a co-equal branch of government. So every single person sitting up here is fighting so that we have a Congress that acts as a co-equal branch of government. Because after that co-equal branch of government being Congress exercising its power, because any right that you don't exercise you lose, our next check is the vote. To take out the congressional representation that is not representing us and shoring up those alliances.
Thank you. David?
I pretty much agree with everything that's been said. Congress needs to take the authority back from the administration and exercise that authority. But you might think about, why is it Congress's authority to start with? And it's because it's the deliberative body. It's where you get together, you bring everybody to the table, and you come up with the best solution that all the minds can have, and not just the whim of a single person. That's why it's Congress's job to start with.
Thank you. Andrew?
Yes, Article 1, powers do lie with tariffs with Congress, that's true. We're also talking trade agreements here though, which the President can go sign and then tear up immediately, as we've seen. So again, are we going to have great agreements if countries cannot trust us? Would you make another agreement with somebody that ripped you off? I would. So we need to start with building that trust, showing them reliable people. And that starts by electing good people. We should look at the character and the quality of the humans that we're putting in charge of our country. The world looks at, we used to be the ones they looked to for guidance, looked to, we're that country. And now, we got people like Trump in there. And what's going to come next? We need to ensure we put good people going forward. People that aren't looking out for their interest only. Partnership means I want you to succeed as well as ourselves. Not, you're succeeding a little bit more than me right now, so we're going to tear this up. That's not how it works. We need to be responsible citizens and vote for the best people. They're going to look out for everybody's interest, especially those that we make agreements with.
Carmela?
In March 2025, Michael Baumgartner held his last really public town hall meeting, and that was in... Yeah, okay. Reclaiming my time. In March 2025, Michael Baumgartner held his last public town hall meeting because people started yelling at him when he started lying to them. And it made international news because it made the news in Canada. In Canadian Broadcasting Company carried the question, what are you going to do what do you think about the President's idea of making Canada an American state? And he said, well, that's a bad idea because they vote Democrat. And people booed, and people waved the Canadian flag. And the Canadian Broadcasting Company highlighted that the American people repudiated Donald Trump and Michael Baumgartner's scoffing at Canadian sovereignty. Everyone in this room, everyone up here, can start showing immediately by showing up to vote to flip the House blue in the midterm elections. It is that repudiation of Donald Trump by the American people that's going to start building the trust we need to rebuild access to our markets so that people will trust us, we the people, again.
Thank you. Richard, you're going to start off this next question. What is your plan for restoring women's rights to choose?
I 100% support women's right to choose. The bottom line is we need to find a way to get the funding back. Part of it. Okay, this is huge, but we need to get the funding back. But that said, I'm not opposed to. There's a process by which under Congress we can actually pass a law to actually authorize or reinstate the women's right to choose. I'm in favor of that. I don't have a problem with that whatsoever. I'm also thinking that we need to be funding our clinics, we need to be funding our medical care. We need to be making sure that what was cut from local healthcare programs to provide women's access to healthcare, because it is access to healthcare, needs to be available to women. And that really all access to healthcare needs to be available. So my first thing is I'm funding it. My second thing is I'm going to try to expand it. And then moving forward from that is we're going to try to address the access to care issues that they have. Those access to care issues are making sure that we have enough providers to get people the services that they need, because right now they don't. So that it's going to have to take, it's going to take some time, and I'm out of time, so thank you.
This is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. I mentioned I have granddaughters. Last election cycle, I was the campaign manager for Dr. Bernadine Beck. She founded the gynecological program at the Spokane VA. She works at Chaz currently. She could make a lot more money, but she chooses to take care of women's health. Now, we have some short-term options, and I mean, you're going to hear some good ideas up here, like what Rich was saying, the legislation, but we need a long-term solution as well, and it may take a while. But what this country needs is a new equal rights amendment. And it has to include a woman's autonomy over her own body. If you do not have control and autonomy over your own person, you're not even a second-class citizen. You're merely livestock.
Nate.
That decision should be between a woman and her doctor, protected by the government. Should be codified in law, and a Medicare for All system would create that access to that important piece of healthcare. As I said, codify it in law, make sure that, as Bajun said, women have the autonomy over their own body to make decisions about their health and their body, and keep the government out of it, except to protect it.
David.
I fully support women having bodily autonomy. I support men having bodily autonomy. It's crazy that we're even having this discussion these days, but here we are. So I would support codifying it in law, absolutely. I felt strongly enough about it that I put it in my little statement for the voter's guide for women's bodily autonomy there. And I'm not sure there's much more to say about that. So I yield my time to the man in the t-shirt.
Andrew.
First of all, women, I want to apologize. I cannot imagine how frustrating it is to have, nothing against these guys, Mike, I just mean in general, men that probably can't adequately describe a menstrual cycle, tell you about what you can and can't do with your bodies. That's just got to irritate the hell out of you. Yeah, absolutely. That's your right. But let's go a little further here, because a lot of women these days use the little tracker apps to track their periods on there. When is somebody from maybe Idaho going to visit Washington, happens to have endometriosis, and doesn't have regular periods? And then they go back to Idaho because they put in law and say, oh, we're going to arrest you because we suspect you have an abortion. When is that going to happen? Because we need to protect that kind of behavior. They're harvesting all your data from your phones. People that write these laws don't seem to understand reproductive health, and that not everybody has a period on the same exact time frame. When is somebody going to, we need to talk about the fact that if you have, you're pregnant, you lose your child, you might have to go have a DNC. That's a traumatic experience. You just lost a child, it's emotional, the physical pain you're in, you have sepsis coming on, you go to the hospital. Kat McCormick down in Florida had to go through just that procedure. Republican Kat McCormick. And she petitioned Ron DeSantis for the right for her to get the DNC, and then once she was done, she didn't want that for anybody else. There's more to the process than they give you credit for. We need to protect the women. And men, learn about women. Over half our population, learn about it.
Carmela. Sorry you have to follow that.
It's all right. It is a study in contrast, I would say. And I agree with everything Andrew said. The Dobbs decision was a travesty of justice. And it was the first time in our nation's history that the Supreme Court revoked an individual freedom that had been earlier recognized, like 40 years earlier recognized as an individual freedom under the Constitution, which, among other things, the 14th Amendment, equal treatment under the law. And so we have got to reform the Supreme Court just as fast as we can. We've got 9 justices. It's been stacked with people who are ridiculously ultra-conservative beyond all reason. We should have at least 29 justices on the Supreme Court. Congress has the power on its own to set the number of justices on the Supreme Court. We've got 28 justices serving just in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And so our Supreme Court should have at least as many justices as what we have in our largest federal court, and that would go a long way towards setting things right. Women, of course, should have the right to choose.
Thank you. Richard? Oh, Kevin, sorry. Yes, that's right. You started, Richard.
Yes, I did.
Kevin.
Here we go. Someone turned off the mic. I don't know how it keeps happening, but I keep passing it to people. I don't know. We, yes, absolutely support women's right to choose because that is a basic function of bodily autonomy. And I want to go back to when Democrats in 2009 had a majority in the House, Senate, and the presidency. And they did not codify the right to an abortion into federal law at that point because it was already protected by the courts had already ruled on it. And yet here we are today. We had to rely on the good and better nature of the ultra-conservative Supreme Court justices. And so in the meantime, yes, we need to get to a point where we codify that into federal law. But like Andrew was saying, with all of the data, with all the tracking, there was a recent article about a sheriff's deputy from another state that was tracking a woman in the inland Northwest using flock cameras because they suspected her of getting an abortion care. And that is absolutely wrong and horrifying.
Thank you. This will be our last question. Yeah, I know. Time flies when you're having fun. And we'll start with Bajun. How will you build a coalition amongst your fellow candidates after the primary to beat Baumgartner? Michael.
We all love each other. We've been doing this for a while. Where we have some minor disagreements, they are just that. They are minor disagreements. We will all work together. Each of us thinks we are the best candidate. That's why we're all up here. The job is to convince you that we're the best candidate. So we will do that. But I did want to give you some thanks for these Trump administration constitutions. You know why I know they're from the Trump administration? Because these booklets have never been opened.
So as Bajun said, this group up here mostly gets along because we are all fighting for the same thing, to get better representation for the people of this district. And my expertise is in the labor movement. Like I said, I'm a union firefighter endorsed by the Washington State Labor Council. My vision for America's future and bringing us out of this crisis is restarting the labor movement. But David Womack is the hospital administrator and has incredible expertise there. Carmela and her foreign service experience is vital. The climate experience from Kevin, Richard and his military legal experience, Bajun is maybe
taller than the other guy.
He is taller and is incredibly intelligent and understands the systems that we are working in. And we have the best energy with Andrew at the end of the table.
Bartleson in his mouth.
So we are all working in the same direction to get better representation for the people of this district.
David?
We've been asked similar questions several times, and we've all pledged to line up behind whoever it is that goes up against Michael Baumgartner. We're going to work together. The goal is to get rid of him. The goal is to take our country back. Our goal is to support and defend that Constitution and your rights. A better economy, affordable, accessible health care, supporting agriculture, and defending our rights. Bajun pointed out that this hadn't been open. When I saw it up here, I thought, oh, it's an open book test.
Andrew.
Well, it was about 2 months ago down in Fairfield, the first time I met these guys. Sorry, weren't there. And immediately afterwards, we all got together and we talked about this exact thing. That, yeah, we're going to support each other. And we built some great relations. The best part of this whole process has been meeting these guys. I got friends I'm going to keep around forever now. Like, love these guys. Kevin, you're a fantastic dude. No, seriously. You and Mercedes are awesome people. Much love for you. Carmela, I appreciate it last summer when I asked you about this. You gave me 15 minutes of your time to talk to me. You didn't have to do that, but you did, and I appreciate that. Richard probably didn't tell you about his 4.0 GPA he got yet, but this dude is a smart dude. I love Richard. Jenny, you rock. My whole family is awesome. We live down the street. It's friends. Bajun, every time I see Bajun, the biggest smile on his face, Andrew! It's a big hug. I love these people. They're awesome. Nate, I've met you twice now, but I like Nate. He's a great dude. Womack, you know how I feel about you. We're gonna get Artemis to play with Mountain Doodle one of these days. Yeah, we all got a lot of love for each other, so don't worry about that.
Carmela.
So I hate to be the skunk at the picnic, but I will say I pledge to back whichever Democrat makes it through the primary to challenge Michael Baumgartner. And I do that because I understand the rules of the House of Representatives. The people who have power in the House of Representatives are the people who are members of one of the two major parties. You're either in the majority party and you're making the rules, and we're seeing how the Republican Party has used that to exclude Democratic voices from the room, or you're part of the minority party where you still do get a voice on committees. And Democrats have been making good use of those committees to hold Republican appointees' feet to the fire. So my commitment is to back any Democrat who makes it through. And it's not because I doubt that Andrew or Nate are good people. They're terrific people. I think everybody up here is running for the right reasons. But we need to be practical about how power is wielded in the House of Representatives. And if we're not in the room, we're on the menu.
A little bit of a buzzkill, I'll be honest. I think we're all very excited, and I will agree with the others that have committed their support to the others who are whoever is going to face Michael Baumgartner, and I think that'll still be me. But the most important part, I think for all of us, not only our shared individual expertise, but like the many things we were talking about. Bajun's been all over the district talking with different communities, so is David. We've all had so many distinct community conversations, and all of us recognize the importance of getting Baumgartner out. And so whichever candidate does make it through the primary, not only do we have to lean on their individual expertise, we have to lean on our networks. We have to lean on the work that we've already done. And for me, I'm gonna make sure that the young people have a voice at the table. Whether I'm running or not, we need to make sure that we are turning out the vote. We're getting new people registered. Wazoo is right down the road, and I know that there's a number of college students, thousands that would get registered to vote, and that is going to be the difference in this district. Thank you.
Richard.
I love my job to do this because I care so much about what we're doing here. I'm retired now because I'm dedicating full time to this cause. And that is defeating Michael Baumgartner to take care of us. This is where we need to be. We all need to be working together. Even if an independent were elected, they can caucus with the Democrats. I would hope that they would commit to that. But that said, it's extraordinarily important that, as Kevin was saying, we all work together. No single one of us has the ability to meet with 900,000 people. We are going to need all of you. There's no one person that can do this alone. It's going to be those conversations. It's going to be those communications that you're going to have with your friends, your family, your neighbors. We need you just as much. as we need each other. We're all going to have to come together because we're all in this together. Thank you.
Okay, we will now go for closing remarks. You each have 2 minutes. And we're going to start over here with David. Go down the line.
I thought those were closing remarks.
Well, keep it short then.
Okay, so I'll just go back maybe and reiterate a little bit about my qualifications and why I think these are important. But first, I'll start with my values. I think a lot of times people running for office or people in office don't talk about what their core values are, and I think they should talk about those. So my parents raised me to always act with integrity. That's number one, integrity. My faith calls me to serve all. That's number two, service. And the Air Force taught me to lead with excellence. So that's it, integrity, service, and excellence. And I think that's a lot of what's missing in government today, especially the federal government, the administration, and its congressional allies. Imagine if we could always believe what we were told. Imagine if we always knew the federal government was working to serve us, the people. And imagine if it was doing it to its absolute best ability, integrity, service, and excellence. So that's actually part of the mission of the federal government, which is outlined in the preamble to the Constitution. To establish justice, form a more perfect union first, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, how we doing on that one? Provide for the common defense, not offense, to support the general welfare, and to ensure the blessings of liberty for ourselves and our posterity. So when I talked at the beginning about swearing the oath to the Constitution, that's it. I want to make sure the federal government fulfills its mission for us.
I think you were right. I think the last closing statement that we all just gave was pretty good, but I'll take this opportunity to talk about some realities within the district and why I think you supporting me in this race, in the primary, is the pragmatic decision. I'd like every Trump voter in this room to raise their hand. This room does not represent the district. This is a 60-40 conservative district. I am running as an independent because neither party has been working for us. They've been subservient to their corporate donors, and people are frustrated. But those 60% of the people in this district that voted for Trump, they're frustrated too, because he consistently lied to them. He told us that he was going to lower prices, keep us out of foreign wars, and drain the swamp. And he has moved the exact opposite direction on all of those claims. And there are moderate conservatives frustrated with our representation in this district, but they are conservatives, conservative cultural values. But they would be willing to come to an independent. And it will take a pragmatic Democrats that understand that the road for a Democrat in this district is incredibly difficult. 20-point gap. And so, my arms are open to every single person in this district. The 60% and the 40%. And honestly, about 45% of this district identifies as independents. And I think the right fit for our district is an independent. Because the problems that we are facing are not left-right issues. They are top-bottom issues. We are all living in this economy together, and we are going to have to come together and fight to get out of it.
I'm in favor of a powerful, nonpartisan military. You never use U.S. troops on U.S. soil against U.S. persons. Is that liberal or conservative? I'm in favor of taking care of our veterans, the promises, the contract that we made with them. Is that Democratic or Republican? I'm in favor of the entire Bill of Rights. First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. To include the Second Amendment. Where I live in Stevens County, you call the police, it is 30 to 45 minutes before they get there. My neighbors are armed, as am I. I believe in free trade. I believe in a balanced budget. Are those things liberal or conservative? We have to reach voters where they are. Right? Now, another thing. Reticulum, lumen, omeso, abomeso. Everybody who knows what I'm talking about, please raise your hand. What are those?
Stomachs of a cow.
That is absolutely correct. I have killed, raised, dressed, cut and wrapped my own animals. I live on a farm. I cut my own firewood. You have to understand real, live people where they are. Никого не здесь говорите по-русски. Хорошо, молодец, молодец. I learned Russian in the army. There are 40,000 Ukrainians in this district. Another 10,000 Russian speakers. I am in this month's Krishtiansky Novosti, it's back there on the table, to meet the people where they are. And if it's not enough to do it in a room like this, I've gone to their doors. I've gone to their communities. That's how I'm going to win. It's going and communicating with people beyond party lines.
Bajun and I are in agreement. This is Richard Freudenberg again. Bajun and I are in agreement. Bottom line, we have to find and meet the people where they are. I was raised in Moscow, Idaho. My grandpa was a farmer. My son just earned his Eagle Scout. I've been 11 years in scouting. My son is a senior, or will be a senior. My daughter is a sophomore. We're in the public school system. I've been in the public school system. We need to find paths to relate to the individuals that we're trying to represent. And I have a lot of those. I bring a lot of those to the table. I spent the last 2 times up in Deer Park and Colville last week talking with very, very conservative voters. 3 of them walked out with my signs. It's about reaching across and talking to people and having a real conversation. It's about talking about the ways we, very candidly, we're not going to get everything we want in any bill, and neither are they. It's an 85% solution. I was able to sit down with senior members of the Republican Party and get them to align with my approach. That takes time, that takes effort, that takes understanding. I've dedicated that time, many of us have. But I can tell you, I've worked with conservative individuals in the military for 22 years. I've learned as an attorney to communicate with individuals in a lot of different, very tense environments, and to find a way to work together in a crisis. I would say right now, a lot of our people are in a crisis. We have got to engage now. I've been asked, what is my #1 priority? My answer to that is, my entire house is on fire. I can't put out just one room. We have got to engage, and fighting with each other is not going to do it. I would encourage you to consider me as your candidate, because I have the ability to communicate with people across the aisle and get to that 85% solution. Thank you.
Words. Kevin Fagan. I'm a proud progressive, and for me that means unconditionally fighting and supporting all communities and the people of this district. People first. Not corporations, not lobbyists. It's having face-to-face conversations with people. I want to leave you with 2 things. 1, fun fact, 10% of Trump supporters in New York City went on to vote for Mamdani 2 years later. Or actually 1 year after that election. And so that shows that there's a block of Trump supporters that is uniquely called to economic populism. People want to see, regardless of political ideology, they want to see our leaders tell the policies that we're going to fight for them. Voice a future that we can actually do together. Mamdani won on the free buses and city-owned grocery stores because people were pissed about the price of their goods. Many people in this district feel the same for so many different reasons. That's why I support universal childcare, because frankly, childcare costs have gone out of control. If we want to talk about creating a healthy and sustainable economy, we need to have the ability for our young families to put two people to work and have pay for childcare. Also, we need young people to vote in this district, period. We are not going to win if we only reach across the aisle to existing Republicans and independents. We need to draw up the vote, we need to drum out, we need to go to colleges, universities, and we need to convince people that Democrats, your leaders, can actually fight for something. We can do something. We're not just going to fall by the wayside and let our lobbyists dictate what we're going to do. So that's why I believe that I'm the best candidate to be Baumgartner, because I'm proudly fighting for the policies that put working class people first, and that is going to drum out support. Thank you.
So, I'm a third-generation Eastern Washingtonian and a third-generation union member, as many of you already know, because we started having this conversation back when I was running against Kathy McMorris Rogers. And we made it through what I thought was a really crowded primary in 2024, with 11 candidates in the race for the open seat. And I thank the people in this room who voted for me, because in Whitman County, I took 48% of the vote, which told me that the county that knew Michael Baumgartner best liked him least. And starting early in 2025, I started traveling around the district again. And what I heard was that as time went by, and he voted against our farmers, and he voted against our rural hospitals, and he voted against Medicaid and Social Security, and all the loss of the markets, more and more people, as they lost access to their overseas markets, as their costs went up, as the labor force, the essential workers that they relied on, disappeared because they were being terrorized by DHS agents, more and more people have come around to the idea that this administration, Michael Baumgartner, is not moderate. It's not even conservative. It's anti-American, and people want better. And that's true of Democrats, Republicans, as well as independents. And my data team, I'm a policy wonk, y'all know that about me. What my data team told me was that one of the salient features of the 2024 election is about 25,000 people in this district didn't bother showing up who had voted in 2020. Another salient feature was about 25,000 people split the ticket. They voted for Kamala Harris and Michael Baumgartner. They're regretting that second choice, and they're going to come around. Let's do this.
A little sad, actually, because I don't know how many more times we're all going to be together here. And going to these events, before deciding to run, because I was stressed, frustrated, angry, ruminating at home, bitching and complaining, but that would actually do something. And we go to these events, I gotta be honest, you feel hopeful for a moment, but also kind of hit you with, all we talk about is all the things that are wrong, how maybe we can make a couple of things a little bit better. It's such a stressful, depressing time for them, especially for the young folks. So you know what? Let's all do something a little bit different this time. Let's leave on a happy note, all right? This is something I've been doing for a while. I work for the state, so we always get these surveys about, acknowledgement, recognition. It never really actually comes. They just want to make sure that you still want acknowledgement and recognition, right? So it occurred to me that that is something very important for people to have. So at the very least, let's try to make the world a little bit better place ourselves, everybody in this room, all right? So when you get home tonight, call somebody in your life that you love. Somebody needs that little extra pep in their step, call them. And let them know explicitly how you feel about them. Tell them all the things you love about them, all the things that bring you joy in them. And I'm going to start this off with Ava Sally Bartleson back there. Ava, darling, I love you. That's why we're here. I can't tell you how proud it is, and I'm going to try my best not to start crying right now, but I am so proud hearing from everybody that were out here about what a mature, confident young woman you are now. That's all I want. Seeing the people come to me, and come up to you and talking about they want to invest in your future and how much they think you're special. That makes me so happy. I'm so damn proud of you. You're the most wonderful person I know. You're the most empathetic, thoughtful, caring friend, and it's awesome. You bring people together. Even though you're little in stature, you stand up for people. You rise up and you don't let them be oppressed. You don't let them be put down. You don't suffer fools. I love you for that. I'm so glad you're my daughter. You couldn't make me happier.
Thank you. I would like to thank, again, all the candidates for participating and every one of you who attended and wrote so many questions that we really didn't have time for. There is still time to register to vote. You have till July 27th to register online or by mail. After that, you can go to the elections office and register right up, including election day. So there's no excuse. We have a QR code on the back table that will take you straight to the registration form. So ballots will be mailed this week. If you do not receive your ballot, call the elections office in Colfax. Election day is August 4th. Please remember to sign your ballot. The number one reason ballots are rejected is because of no signature. Not just mismatch. No signature at all. So, to ensure your ballot is counted, we encourage you to use a drop box or to make sure your ballot is mailed at least 7 to 10 days before the election. That's all I have. Oh, wait a minute, I have an announcement. Stoughton County is this weekend from 1 to 3 is having at Clarkston 6th and Sycamore Street a Get Out the Vote rally. So for anybody who's interested.
Which day of the week?
Saturday.
Saturday, it didn't say, so I was, yeah. We have to leave the room by 9, so thank you all.
Oh,